All right, we are back for day 11. I promise I did day 10. I just was going back through it and I saw I didn't upload or something like that, so I just went to upload that. So that should be uploaded now. Said it was like 50% through. Um, but I did it. I recorded it. It's up there. I just uploaded it a day late. But today is gonna be day 11. Still on Steve Jobs. Um, as you'll see in day 10, ended up finishing up chapter 17, where Icarus goes up and he has to come down. In that manner, he came down. You know, he tried to pull all the tricks out the book. He tried to, get Scully to relinquish control, but um, they made him a poster boy, and he cannot live like that. Um, with that being said, if you've just been trying to read more, feel welcome to pull up a chair. Um, Tell me on why you folding some clothes or something like that. Um, I try to make sure that halfway upload never happens again. Um, but yeah, let's hop right into it. Chapter 18, next. Prometheus Unbound. Prometheus. That's Greek. That's some Greek mythology. I know all y'all have been watching the Odyssey and things like that. That may be the next book that I read, but Prometheus. The pirates abandoned ship. Upon his return from Europe in August 1985, while he was casting about for what to do next, Jobs called the Stanford biochemist Paul Berg to discuss the advances that were being made in gene splicing and recombinant DNA. Berg described how difficult it was to experiment in a biology lab where it could take weeks to nurture an experiment and get a result. Why don't you simulate them on a computer? Jobs asked. Berg replied that computers with such capacities were too expensive for university labs. Suddenly, he was excited about the possibilities. Berg recalled, he had it in his mind to start a new company. Man, gotta keep swinging. What Rocky say? It's not about how hard you can hit, but it's about how hard you can get hit and continue to. Oh no, not about how hard you can get hit, but it's about how some you gotta get back up. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Gotta start a new company. He was young and rich and had to find something to do with the rest of his life. Jobs had already been canvassing academics to ask what their workstation needs were. It was something he had been interested in since 1983 when he had visited the computer science department at Brown to show off the Macintosh, only to be told that it would take a fair more powerful machine to do anything useful in a university lab. The dream of academic researchers was to have a workstation that was both powerful and personal. As head of the Macintosh division, Jobs had launched a project to build such a machine, which was dubbed the Big Mac. It was where the Big Mac, 1983. So did he come up with McDonald's slogan too? Ain't no way. It was dubbed the Big Mac. It would have a Unix operating system, but with the friendly Macintosh interface. But after Jobs was ousted from the Macintosh division, his replacement, Jean-Louis Gassi, canceled the Big Mac. When that happened, Jobs got a distress call from Rich Page, who had been engineering the Big Mac's chipset. It was the latest in a series of conversations that Jobs was having with disgruntled Apple employees, urging him to start a new company and rescue them. Plans to do so began to gel over Labor Day weekend when Jobs spoke to Bud Tribble, the original Macintosh software chief, and floated the idea of starting a company to build a powerful but personal workstation. He also enlisted two other Macintosh division employees who had been talking about leaving, the engineer George Crow and the controller Susan Barnes. That left that left one key vacant. That left one key vacancy on the team, a person who could market the new product to universities. The obvious candidate was Daniel Lewin, who at Apple had organized a consortium of universities to buy Macintosh computers in bulk. Besides missing two letters in his first name, Lewin had the chiseled good looks of Clark Kent and a Princetonian's polish. He and Jobs shared a bond. Lewin had written had written a Princeton thesis on Bob Dylan's and a charismatic leadership, and Jobs knew something about both of those topics. Lewin's University Consortium had been a godsend to the Macintosh group, but he had become frustrated after Jobs left and Bill Campbell had reorganized marketing in a way that reduced the role of direct sales to universities. He had been meaning to call Jobs when that Labor Day weekend Jobs called first. He drove to Jobs' unfurnished mansion and they walked the grounds while discussing the possibility of creating a new company. Lewin was excited but not ready to commit. He was going to Austin with Campbell the following week and he wanted to wait until then to decide. Upon his return, he gave his answer. He was in. The news came just in time for the September 13th Apple board meeting. Hey, God working mysterious ways. Lewin was about to call him. Steve called him first. They say, I don't know, this is just an old country saying what they say is you like somebody thinking about you and they or you thinking about somebody and they call you right at that moment. I mean, you're gonna live a long time, man. Live a long time, or you going to heaven. One of the two. I can't quite remember, but it's one of those sayings. Um, but none of this would have happened if Jobs never took the um the bull by the horns. He ain't make that call. Because Lewin probably was like, yeah, I need to call. You see, he's not committed. He needed somebody to take action for him, take the bulls by the horn for him. But it's like Jobs down and out. He rich still, but he down and out. And it's like, shoot, let's keep taking a swing. Like we did something with the Mac. We can. There's still something that we could do that's better than the Mac. Let's just improve the Mac. What company, what audience can we tailor it to, and let's just pour into that. Um, but you got to make that call though. Um, Although Jobs was still nominally the board's chairman, he had not been to any meeting since he lost power. He called Scully, said he was going to attend, and asked that an item be added to the end of the agenda for a chairman's report. He didn't say what it was about, a chairman's report, because he a poster boy. He didn't say what it was about, and Scully assumed it would be a criticism of the latest reorganization. Instead, when his turn came to speak, Jobs described to the board his plans to start a new company. I've been thinking a lot, and it's time for me to get on with my life, he began. It's obvious that I've got to do something. I'm 30 years old. Then he referred to some prepared notes to describe his plan to create a computer for the higher education market. The new company would not be competitive with Apple, he promised, and he would take with him only a handful of non-key personnel. He offered to resign as the chairman of Apple, but he expressed hope that they could work together. So he could be a team player, kind of, sort of. He just has to he has to be in control, but he can go create another company and still be in touch with Apple. But he expressed hope that they could work together. Perhaps Apple will want to buy the distribution rights to his product, he suggested, or license Macintosh software to it. Mike Mercula rankled at the possibility that Jobs will hire anyone from Apple. Why would you take anyone at all? He asked. Don't get upset, Jobs assured him and the rest of the board. These are very low level people that you won't miss, and they will be leaving anyway. The board initially seemed disposed to wish Jobs well in his venture. After a private discussion, the directors even proposed that Apple take a 10% stake in the new company and that Jobs remain on the board. That night, Jobs and his five renegades met again at his house for dinner. He was in favor of taking the Apple investment, but the others convinced him it was unwise. Apple's just trying to keep it keep their tentacles attached to him. They know he can do some great things. Like, let's get a 10% stake. But they like, no. There's people around telling them, no. It's gonna be the same thing that you just left from. Why would you? Okay. They also agreed that it would be best if they resign all at once, right away. Then they could make a clean break. So Jobs wrote a formal letter telling Scully the names of the five who would be leaving, signed it in his spidery lowercase signature, and drove to Apple the next morning to hand it to him before his 7:30 staff meeting. Steve, these are not low level people, Scully said. Well, these people were going to resign anyway, Jobs replied. They are going to be handling in their resignations by 9 this morning. From Jobs' perspective, he had been honest. The five were not division managers or members of Scully's top team. They had all felt diminished, in fact, by the company's new organization. But from Scully's perspective, they were important players. Page was an Apple fellow, and Lewin was a key to the higher education market. In addition, they knew about the plans for Big Mac. Even though it had been shelved, this was still proprietary information. Nevertheless, Scully was sanguine. Instead, sanguine. Look, Uzi got a song title like that. That's a good song too. Go check it out if you haven't. Shout out Uzi. Uh Never mind. Uzi be on some weird stuff nowadays. Look like Marilyn Manson or Marilyn Monroe. One of the two. No, Betty Bob. Y'all know the character with the big head caricature? Instead of pushing the point, he asked Jobs to remain on the board. Jobs replied that he would think about it. But when Scully walked into his 7:30 staff meeting and told his top lieutenants who was leaving, there was an uproar. Most of them felt that Jobs had breached his duties as chairman and displayed stunning disloyalty to the company. We should expose him for the fraud that he is so that people here stop regarding him as a messiah, Campbell shouted. According to Scully, according to Scully, Campbell admitted that although he later became a great Jobs defender and supportive board member, he was ballistic that morning. I was fucking furious, especially about him taking Daniel Lewin. He recalled Daniel had built the relationships with the universities. He was always muttering about how hard it was to work with Steve, and then he left. Campbell was so angry that he walked out of the meeting to call Lewin at home. When his wife said he was in the shower, Campbell said, "I'll wait." A few minutes later, when she said he was still in the shower, Campbell again said, "I'll wait." When Lewin finally came on the phone, Campbell asked him if it was true. Lewin acknowledged it was. Campbell hung up without saying another word. After hearing the fury of his senior staff, Scully surveyed the members of the board. They likewise felt that Jobs had misled them with his pledge that he would not raid important employees. Arthur Rock was especially angry. Even though he had sided with Scully during the Memorial Day showdown, he had been able to repair his fraternal relationship with Jobs. Just a week before, he had invited Jobs to bring his girlfriend up to San Francisco so that he and his wife could meet her, and the four had a nice dinner in Rock's Pacific Heights home. Jobs had not mentioned the new company he was forming, so Rock felt betrayed when he heard about it from Scully. "He came to the board and lied to us," Rock growled later. "He told us he was thinking of forming a company when in fact he had already formed it. He said he was going to take a few middle level people. It turned out to be 5 senior people." Markula, in his subdued way, was also offended. He took some top executives he had secretly lined up before he left. "That's not the way you do things. It was ungentlemanly." Over the weekend, both the board and the executive staff convinced Scully that Apple would have to declare war on its co-founder. Markula issued a formal statement accusing Jobs of acting in direct contradiction to his statements that he wouldn't recruit any key Apple personnel for his company. He added ominously, "We are evaluating what possible actions should be taken." Campbell was quoted in the Wall Street Journal as saying he was stunned and shocked by Jobs' behavior. I'm confused though, like, and in wartime and everything like that. So, like, take Gladiator for example. His soldiers were loyal to him. Like, why would they stay in? You get what I'm saying? Like, but that's why Brad took him, and that's why it's the movie, because he had to separate him from his soldiers and try to kill him off from his soldiers so that his soldiers wouldn't leave, and then that they would be able to stay strong as an army, and then that army can create a different ruler, a different nation, a different what were they called? Um, Dang, it's Caesar. He's the Caesar. But let's go ahead and finish off this page. Jobs had left his meeting with Scully thinking that things might proceed smoothly, so he had kept quiet. But after reading the newspaper, he felt that he had to respond. He phoned a few favorite reporters and invited them to his home for private briefings the next day. Then he called Annie Cunningham, who had handled his publicity at Regis McKenna. "I went over to his unfurnished mansion place in Woodside, she recalled, and I found him huddled in the kitchen with his 5 colleagues and a few reporters hanging outside on the lawn. Jobs told her that he was going to do a full-fledged press conference and started spewing some of the derogatory things he was going to say. Cunningham was appalled. "This is going to reflect badly on you," she said. She told him. Finally, he backed down. He decided that he would give the reporters a copy of the resignation letter and limit any on the record comments to a few bland statements. Jobs had considered just mailing in his letter of resignation, but Susan Barnes convinced him that this would be too contemptuous. Instead, he drove it to Markula's house, where he also found Al Eisenstadt. There was a tense conversation for about 15 minutes. Then Barnes, who had been waiting outside, came to the door to retrieve him before he said anything he would regret. He left behind the letter, which he had composed on Macintosh and printed on the new laser writer. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, that's a cliffhanger right there. We're gonna leave that there. Um, get through chapter 18. I like it though. Be able to see Steve where he's not necessarily down and out, like the dude's worth however many millions of dollars, but like see him just keep taking a swing, not letting it. They say it's not over until the fat ladies sing. So just keep taking a swing, keep pushing, keep striving for whatever it is that you are striving for, whether that could be the Big Mac or the Little Mac. Is some things out here that only you can create and you can strive for, and that you can have a goal for. So like, man, just keep pushing. This is not just for you guys; it's for myself as well. Just keep pushing. Just keep being consistent. That's one of the reasons that I wanted to do this. Just continue to learn about some of the greatest people, greatest air quotes, greatest people that ever lived. Just be able to see how their mindset lives and how they work, and it's cool to see. Sports has been a big background for me, but it's cool to see that even in like business, it's all about like just keep striving, just keep pivoting, just keep working, go back to the drawing board. That's all you gotta do. Go back at halftime, come back out, and let's try to knock it down, possession by possession. Next thing you know, possession by possession becomes 4-point lead. But then it's like once you get up, you think you living, you coasting. That 4-point lead comes with an 8-point deficit. So like Icarus, what goes up can also come down. But it's like as long as the games continue to go, we always got a chance to take another swing and always get back up. And this game of life is not done until we dead. So let's just keep pushing, man. Day 11. If you're trying to become more well-read, just tap in with me. Pull up a chair. Yeah, man. Day 11. 1-1.